Yes, this is Mr. Glenn of ACT Prep Chicago. Recording the answer explanations for ACT digital online tests. It's on this page. Online practice tests. You access it through Test Prep. Um, and free ACT practice test and prep. So if you get to this menu, click here, free ACT practice test and prep, and you scroll down to get out the way. Online practice test, that's where you'll get it. If you did these practice tests, they're the same. They're just in the PDF form. Okay. So I'm gonna have the PDF form. I got it pulled up already there. That's that site, and the PDF is there because I use the answer key for the PDF sometimes to check as we were working. But we're gonna do the online one just because most of you guys are working on the online version. We're gonna do the untimed English today. English one to start. So that way you guys can use to some of the tools we use as well. Okay. Without further ado. Okay. So, which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? Alex Ataya and Brazilian cuisine. At first, Brazilian chef Alex Ataya opened his restaurant in Sao Paulo in 1999. People told him he'd never succeed. That's not going to work because as I read it, that's what? That's two sentences. At first, comma, Brazilian chef Alex Atay opened his restaurant in Sao Paulo in 1990. That's a sentence. Then it goes, comma, people told him he'd never see. That's another sentence. You can't separate two sentences with just a comma by itself. So that won't work. Um, so we need when. Why? Because now when would make the first part a fragment. When Brazilian chef Alex Atella opened his restaurant in Sao Paulo in 1999, comma, that's a fragment, comma, then you go sentence. People told him he'd never succeed. You can do fragment, comma, sentence. Uh, all right. Number two, which choice makes most grammatical sense? So when we look at number two, what's being tested is punctuation. Look at the different answer choices, dash here, two commas, comma, comma. Okay, let's look at the sentence. And I like to actually still read too, because a lot of people just skip that and just go to the next underline part. But the reason I read the words in between is because you'll come across questions that ask about the passage overall, and you need to know the words in between so you can get a context. All right. In a country where European cuisine was held in the highest regard, they said no one would patronize a restaurant serving Brazilian food. Okay, so you opened up, right, in a country where European cuisine was held in the highest regard, they said no one patronized a restaurant serving Brazilian food. Right. He opened his first restaurant. I don't get that. And when he opened his first restaurant in Sao Paulo, 1999, people told him he'd never succeed. He was a Brazilian chef. Sao Paulo is in Brazil, isn't it? In a country where European cuisine was held in the highest regard. So they said European was held in the highest regard in Brazil. They said no one would patronize a restaurant serving Brazilian food in Brazil. Wow. Maybe I'm missing something. Anyway, don't argue with the text necessarily. Just see where they're going with it and try to answer questions based on what they brought. Italia, whose restaurant was consistently ranked among the world's best, has long disproven the naysayers. Using traditional Brazilian ingredients, then it goes what, such as, that's probably a dash because of this dash here, such as manioc root and even ants. Those are like side note of the ingredients. So I bet you it's going to be a dash there. I'm thinking it's B, right? As many in innovative ways, he has thrilled diners from around the world. So if it is a side note, we could take it out. First dash here and then the second dash here. So this part could come out. Um, let's see what I mean by this part. So this part here, oops, no. This part here, such as that, right? That could come out and you read it without it, right? Or what I do is sometimes with my students. when I'm doing a tutoring session is I'll just block it out with a colored rectangle and say, does the sentence work without? So using traditional Brazilian ingredients in innovative ways, he has thrilled diners from around the world. Yes, that works. So that's unnecessary information, which you can use two dashes, two commas, or two parentheses. In this case, we're using two dashes. The first dash after ingredients, the second dash after ants. Okay. Then it goes, the writer wants to emphasize the positive experience diners have here at Atela's restaurant. Yeah, definitely thrilled. He has thrilled diners from around the world. Thrilled would mean he's done well, right? Mystified mean not, it's just mysterious doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. Shocked him, uh, could mean good or bad. Startled, definitely not good per se. When you startled, that's usually not a good thing because you're a little Uh, you startled, you shocked, you're not, you wasn't expecting it. But thrilled is a good thing. When you thrill diners, you're doing a good thing as a chef. You know, and what is it right? Maybe I should put this at the top. No, yeah, I put it up there. Okay. Still, Attila felt he could do more for his country and its cuisine. In 2012, he found it, well, okay. Given that all the choices are true, which one provides the best transition from the preceding paragraph to this paragraph? So the preceding paragraph talked about how he dispelled those myths in Sao Paulo, and he had a Brazilian food place, and he's using these unique ingredients, and he's ranked among the world's best. So he's done well despite the naysayers. What does this paragraph talk about? Now, I'm not going to read this sentence. I'm going to read this. In 2012, he found it because I don't know if this sentence is true, and I don't want it to throw me off. The sentence that's underlined. So in 2012, he founded Instituto Ata to help promote lesser-known ingredients, particularly those of the Amazon basin, while working to protect Brazil's biodiversity. Hearts of palm, for example, were typically harvested from Brazil's wild Chicara palms in an unsustainable way, needing 8 years to mature. The tree dies once its large heart is removed. Patella began persuading producers to cultivate Amazonian Pumfa palms, which grow clusters of stems, each with a small heart. Careful harvesting ensures that the tree will live to yield more hearts, resulting in environmentally friendly production. I got it. So which one? So here he's talking about being environmental with the way he does things. So still, Attila felt he could do more for his country and his cuisine. That's true. He is doing more for his country with using some of the lesser known ingredients, working with Brazil diverse. So this could be true. What about B? It says known for sometimes incorporating fragrances. No, it wasn't about that. We could use our tools to our answer eliminator tool. In fact, Atea's culinary training took place. No, it wasn't the classic. We did this next paragraph was in the classic European restaurants. Atea's obvious affection for his homeland is said to be infectious. Yeah, it wasn't more about that. It was more about him doing more for his country and his cuisine by biodiversity and, healthy ways to do things. So, okay. I read this paragraph already to get the last question because they said we had to connect to the previous paragraph to this paragraph. So I don't really have to read that again. Needing 8 years to mature, the tree dies once its large heart is removed. The tree dies. Okay. Um, so this is doing two things. It's subject verb agreement. Well, it's not subject verb agreement right is right. So tree dies, trees die, tree dies. But um if it was trees die once there, it would be their large hearts are removed. So it wouldn't be plural trees because a large heart is removed. Uh, you wouldn't say tree dies once there because it's one tree. You wouldn't rename that one tree with there. That's plural. I think it's just, yeah. And this is the wrong it's, that's it is. So it should be A. I was thinking it was A too, but I just wanted to make sure. Consider my choices. All right. Atelier began persuading producers to cultivate Amazonian Papunha palms, which grow clusters of stems, each with a small heart. Careful harvesting ensures that the tree will live to yield more hearts. Which choice most effectively maintains the essay's tone? The tree will live to yield more hearts, will pull through and spawn. That's not how they were talking in the paragraph. They weren't using like this unique vocabulary, like poetic. It was just very informational. So pull through and spawn is kind of poetic. Continue to churn out. Ensure that the tree will continue to churn out more hearts. You could say that, but that's more figurative. It's not literal. Keep doling out. Again, this isn't, it's simply yield. The tree will live to yield more hearts. Yield means to give. It will release or give. So that's the most literal, simple, and easy way to state it. You know what? Let's take a look at some of those two choices because we got the answer key here. And again, having the answers is not a bad thing, as long as you know how to do it, right? Because some students will say, well, you're not really learning if you check the answers. But if I check it after, yeah, F or same thing as A is correct. If I check it after I'm doing it, that's fine. So if you're checking your answers after you do it, and number five should have been A as well, that's what you should do. As long as you know what you did to get that answer. If you just guessed and then you're checking your answers, well, no, it's not going to be beneficial to you. Okay, seven. Attila prioritized his working relationships with Amazonian tribes, utilizing their historical know-how they have. And that's know-how that they have is redundant. We want the least redundant, which means shortest usually. And I'm going to probably say D, knowledge of local plants in the area. Local means in the area, so that's redundant. Knowledge that the tribe members know, knowledge and that they know is redundant. Same with know-how that they have, right? So it's knowledge of local plants does not unnecessarily repeat anything. Okay. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? Um, what's being tested here? That versus which versus who versus using. So sentence structure. For instance, let's look at the sentence structure. Okay. He aims to bolster the tribe members' livelihoods while exposing a wider audience to Brazilian ingredients. For instance, Baniwa women have farmed distinctly flavorful chili peppers for centuries that use indigenous agriculture techniques. What would use when you say that use flavored chili peppers for centuries? So you're saying the chili peppers use indigenous? Because you say that use, that would be referring to the women, which you wouldn't say that for women, you say who use. But then the who is behind centuries, so you would think the centuries are the who uses, or the centuries that use indigenous. That's just confusing if you do it like that. It's D because now you're doing a side note. So what you're doing is, for instance, Baniwa women have farmed distinctly flavorful chili peppers for centuries, comma, using indigenous agriculture techniques, comma, to create a seasoning called pimenta chiquita. Right. That's right. Because the other ones would imply that the centuries use indigenous agriculture, or the centuries that use, or the centuries who use, because centuries is right there, so it's implying that the centuries use indigenous agriculture techniques, which wouldn't make sense. So when we put the comma there and then we say using, we know it's a side note that the women have farmed distinctly Charlie peppers for centuries, using indigenous techniques to create, yeah. Okay. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? This is testing verbs, right? Has enabled, are enabling, enable, have enabled. Centuries in there's needs to create a seasoning called Pimenta Jaquita, partnering with Instituto Atia have enabled these women. So partnering with the Institute, the action of partnering, that's one action, right? So it should be has enabled, right? Uh, so this is where a verb phrase is the subject, partnering with that action, that one action has enabled these women from a remote rainforest region to scale up. So that's one thing. All the other choices would be plural things, and it's not plural things, it's the act of partnering, which is one thing. So it has to match has. Has is the only verb here that matches single. Are matches plural, have enabled matches plural, enable match plural subject. But this subject is a verb phrase, but it's talking about one thing, partner. Which choice is clearest and most precise in context? All right, these women. So just partnering with Institute has enabled these women from a remote rainforest region to scale up production and market their product globally. Expanding awareness of the rich diversity of Brazil's native ingredients. Expanding awareness of the rich diversity of Brazil's native ingredients, comma. Atala continues to lead in deciphering the country's food culture, expanding awareness of the rich diversity, lead in deciphering the country's food. Deciphering, I don't think that's the right word. Contorting, dislocating, or transforming. I would say he's transforming. He continues to lead in transforming the country's food culture because he's making them more aware of the rich diversity. Deciphering is kind of like uncovering, and I don't think that's what they're trying to say. But this is a word context one. I think they're trying to say he's by expanding awareness, he's transforming the country's food culture. He's not deciphering. Deciphering is, I think that's like when you to decipher something means to like uncover it, to decipher, to distinguish, I think. Decipher is to determine one thing or another. And that's not really what he's doing. He's not really determining one thing or another. He's kind of transforming it. Okay. By exposing more people to all of these different types of food that are available. Which one is that? 10? We'll look at that too. 10, yeah, 10 is G or B, same thing. All right. That was it for that passage. Okay, next one. Rediscovering Roswitha. Which choice makes the sentence most correctly acceptable? It's testing punctuation, right? Same exact words, different punctuation marks. Ros Rose Roswitha, a medieval author and dramatist. Um, it starts a side note. I can see that because it's the name, then a side note description of it. So if the side note starts with a comma, it should end with a comma. That's choice B. A medieval author and dramatist is the side note explanation. It's like using parentheses, unnecessary information, or supplements if you were looking at Khan Academy's um, skill building. It's one of the earliest known European women playwrights, although little is known about her life. Scholars agree Rossova was born to a noble family around 935 CE. As a relation of Holy Emperor Otto I, she most likely spent her early years as part of his court. Later, sometime before 959 CE, she entered the abbey at Gandersheim. It was well known as a significant center of learning. That's two sentences right here. Up to Gandersheim is a sentence, and then it was a sentence. I know this is wrong. You can't separate two sentences with a comma. So, that's wrong too. Same thing there. That's wrong too. If you put a comma in front of the and there, it would be okay because they're comma and separating two sentences. Historically, was well known as a significant. Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. So it's D. When you say an abbey, well known as a significant center of learning, now it's a fragment on the right side of this comma. So it's sentence up to Gandersheim, comma, then it says an abbey well known as a significant center of learning. That's a fragment, sentence comma fragment works. So you got to recognize sentence structure sometimes as you're reading. If you're not sure what's being tested, think about sentences versus fragments. I recognized it right away when I was reading and I pointed that out. Rosiva entered Gandersheim as a canonist rather than a nun. Her title did not require a vow of poverty, but Roswitha did take the abbey's customary vow of chastity, which absolved her of an obligation to marry. This circumstance made it okay for her to keep her financial status without incurring responsibilities to a husband and children. Whoops. Okay, so I'm supposed to be going. Which choice most effectively maintains the essay's tone? This circumstance made it okay for her to keep her financial status without incurring responsibility to her. Permitted her to hang on to. That's literally, she's not literally hanging on to, although we understand hang on to, we want to be literal. Allow her to retain. Yeah, because made it okay for her to keep is made it okay. When you use the word okay, it's kind of could be slang, right? And it's informal language. You want to use formal language as possible. Don't have to be real technical and difficult, but formal. And to make it okay is not allow her to retain, specifically states it well. This circumstance allow her to retain her financial status without, it's literally what you're saying. Let her keep up. You know, I mean, we understand keep up financial status, but that's not literally, she's not keeping it up per se, right? Because I mean, we understand that figurative speaking, but figuratively, literally what she's doing is it's allowed her to retain her financial status. So it'd be C. You want to be literal. Which transition word or phrase is most logical in context? So this is transitions. Allow her to keep her financial status without incurring responsibility to a husband and children. Now, I don't read the transition word, I read the right. Rostiva had a greater level of independence. She could acquire property, receive guests, employ servants, and visit the royal court than most women of her time. Nevertheless, this is contrasting. This isn't contrasting. The left side says, because she took a vow of chastity, she was able to retain her financial status without incurring responsibility to her husband and children. She didn't have husband and children. And the right side says, well, Steve had a great level of independence because she didn't have. It's like a cause and effect. So as a result would be the cause and effect choice. On the other hand, nevertheless, and in contrast, those say the right side would be different from the left side, and they're not different. The right side is the result of the left side. Because she was able to retain her financial status and did not have responsibilities to husband and children, she had a great level of independence that allowed her to do things that other women couldn't do. Cause and effect. Which choice best helps indicate that each historic epic covered different subject matter? Um, which choice best helps indicate that each historical epic, which historical, oh, I was supposed to read, had a great level of independence she could write than most women. Vosiva produced at least 8 narrative religious poems, 2 historical epics. Then it's got a side note about the epics, about the court of Otto I and Gandersheim, and 6 comedy dramas. Okay, which choice helps indicate that each historical epic covered different subject matter? Each focus on the court of Otto I and no, that sounds like those are the same. Focus on the court of Otto I as well as yeah, I think it's gee, this indicates they're different. One epic was about the court of Otto I, the other about Gendersheim. Yes, that indicates that each historical epic covered different subject matter. The way the other ones are written, it makes it seem like the epics are about the same thing. two historical epics about the court of Ottawa one and Gandersheim that each epic is about the same thing. That's how A, B, and C make it seem that each individual epic was about Ottawa one and Gandersheim. I mean, you can understand that because they're two epics and two topics that each epic is probably about something separate, but it's not clear. D makes it clear that each epic was about a different topic. One epic was about the court of Ottawa one, the other about Gandersheim. And that's what it asked to do. The question said, indicate each historical epic covered different subject matter. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? This is testing punctuation because it's the same exact words, but the commas in different places. So let's pay attention. Oh, we're on a different passage to a musical detour. Every night while driving home from a hectic day at work, my 3-year-old twins quarreling in the back seat, I take a detour. Every night while driving home from a hectic day at work, my 3-year-olds, my 3-year-old twins quarreling in the back seat. Oh, this is a side note. I don't think that was the sentence. I thought it was fragment common sentence. So every night while driving home from a hectic day at work, I take a short detour. See, I read it without the side note, my 3-year-old twins curling in the back seat. That made it easier for me to understand that was fragment, comma, sentence, and then fragment, side note, and then sentence. So fragment, comma, sentence. I turn off the gridlocked highway onto a stretch of Route 66 that is surrounded by arid New Mexico hills. As I was reading that, I didn't see a need to change. I didn't see fragment, comma, sentence. I didn't see adjectives. I turned off the gridlocked highway onto a stretch of Route 66 that is surrounded by arid New Mexico hills. I did not see a need to pause or stop at any point, so I choose this point, the D, that has no commas. Um, when we're nearly 3 miles into our detour, I roll down the windows. Looking pointedly into the rear view mirror, windows rolled down, I say something. Now, I can automatically say this is testing redundancies because it just said I rolled down the windows. Now it's saying windows rolled down. And it says which choice is least redundant. Redundant is unnecessarily repetitive. So I know A is wrong because I don't want to say I rolled down the windows. I just said I did. Into the rear view mirror, 3 miles. No, it said it was 3 miles. 3 miles. So I don't want to say 3 miles again. It says 3 miles when nearly 3 miles. Then 3 miles again, underline, no. And I know the shortest one is probably right. Behind me, locked, looking into the rear view mirror. Behind me would be rear view mirror, so I don't have to say both. So into the rear view mirror, I know I'm looking behind me. That's what a rear view mirror does. It allows you to see what's behind you. So I don't have to say looking behind me in the rear view mirror. That's redundant. So looking pointedly into the rear view mirror, I say something about not throwing anything out of the car, but neither boy is listening. I check my speed. Carefully, I steer toward the fog line. Here it is, boys. I yell at the back seat, the passenger side tires, finding the rumble strips etched into the asphalt. We all know those rumble strips when you feel over boom, 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 boom when you're driving, right? Normal, and sometimes that, if you're really into the story, that visual can help you really comprehend. Not as necessary as with the reading. I mean, with the English as it is with the reading. But normal rumble strips create that loud grating noise when you drive over them. I just did the noise. Like a built-in alarm for drivers who drift too close to the road's edge. Okay, that seems to work. Um, if the writer would delete the highlighted text, paragraph permanently, so what does that do? It gives like a comparison. It gives you some kind of visual to relate to those strips when you roll over them. And you send these strips are like a built-in, almost similar as or so like information that indicates how prevalent rumble strips are on the roadways. No. A detail that reveals the narrator's opinion of distracted drivers. No. Information that clarifies the primary function of rumble strips. That's exactly yeah, exactly what it does. Rumble strips, they do what? They act like a built-in alarm for drivers. A detail that indicates what the rumble strips look like. No, that doesn't tell us what they look like. So let's see. All right. These strips are different. The boys abruptly stop their squalling as the car begins to vibrate. Then, instead of that jolting warning noise, we hear the distinct strain of the song America the Beautiful. The road is playing us a song. I've been taking this detour out of Albuquerque for 2 years, ever since these musical rumble strips were installed. Oh, wow. So these strips, when you roll over them, they play a song. That's interesting. Which choice is least redundant? It's probably the shortest one, which is A. The strips were installed. Were implemented just outside Albuquerque. They said we were out of Albuquerque for 2 years. So that's needlessly repetitive. They play music that play music were put in. They said it was the musical rumble strips. We don't need to say that play music. Were added a couple years ago. They said she's been taking this for 2 years, so we don't need to repeat that. All right. City planners want to find out whether the novelty of hearing a snippet of song would give drivers an incentive to obey the speed limit. Tune is only recognizable if they're going a reasonable 45 miles per hour. Whether this strategy works, I don't know. For me, this brief musical interlude is a charming curiosity, a welcoming interruption in my work week slog. Even though constant traffic has worn down the musical rumble strips and warped the sound of some of the notes, there are currently no plans to restore the strips. That wouldn't be right, because if you say even though there is worn down and the sound is not as good, you got to say something positive about it. Not there are no plans to currently, because even though tells you, okay, even though, then I'm gonna say something after the comma, I have to contrast what I just said. So saying that there are no plans to restore them is not contrast to the first part, which is about what? The traffic has worn down the rumble strips and the sound is not as good, right? So which one most effectively leads into the rest of the essay? So we have to read what happens after. After the last one of the notes fades into the darkening sky, I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. I start worrying about work, about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between here and home. Until then, I feel like everything is going to be just fine. Which one most effectively leads into the rest of the essay? Lots of other drivers try to speak still back the detour to hear the tune. We don't know if that's what they talk about. Sometimes drivers will turn around and drive over the strips again. We didn't say that. This detour on our drive home never fails to buoy my spirits. Yes, to increase her spirits, right? She said, I stopped worrying, right? I feel like everything is going to be just fine. That goes with buoying or increasing her spirits. Um, After the last one, oh, okay, I had to. After the last one of the notes fades into the darkening sky, this is subject verb agreement. Because fades, no change, and then fade or disappear, have disappeared. Which choice makes sense most well acceptable? Uh, After the last one, the subject is last one fades. So we need a verb that has an S. All these D, C, and B are all verbs that match plural subjects. Like you could say we fade, we disappear, we have disappeared. But you wouldn't say we fades. You would say he fades or she fades. So fades matches the singular subject. In this case, the subject is the one. Of the notes is a prepositional phrase that modifies one, but one is the subject. And one is singular. So we need a verb that matches singular subject, which is fades. Which choice makes sense most grammatically acceptable? So we have who versus whom, which is subject pronoun versus object pronoun. I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. What other pronoun could I use besides who? I could say they have, which is another subject pronoun, just like who. I couldn't say them have. That wouldn't work. I can say him have. Well, them have would be the boys. Them because them is the object pronoun like whom. So I know it's who because the other, and then usually if there's a verb that comes right after it, you need the subject pronoun, which would be who. Whom will be the object pronoun, which is usually not followed by a verb, it's usually followed by a subject, then a verb. But also you could use other object pronoun like them and it would work, but them have been would not work. And it wouldn't be the who's been, no. It would be who you could say who have been. That would be wrong. And then they have been low, but you could say that, but now if you use they, that's a sentence on the right side. So after the last one of the notes fade into the darkening sky, I glance back at the boys. That's a sentence. Comma. If you say A, who have been lulled by the wonder of the song, that's a fragment. That works. Sentence, comma, fragment. If you did C, they have been lulled by the wonder of the song, that's another sentence. You can't use a comma to separate two sentences. That's why A is correct. Which transition word or phrase is the most logical in context? I stopped worrying about work, about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between there and home. Um, so transition words, transition. So I stopped worrying about work, about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between there and home. I feel like everything is going to be just fine. Um, right. She's talking about for now. For now works the best. And she stops worrying about work, which was the past, about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between there from work and home. Right? She stopped thinking about a lot of that. For now, I feel like everything is going to be just fine. So that's how she feels now. She stops worrying about it because now she feels like everything's going to be just fine. The other choices now and then, later, until then, don't really connect the two. All right. At this point, the writer is considering add the following accurate sentence. I hear there is another musical role in the U.S. somewhere in California. Should the writer make this addition? The title of this is about a musical detour, and I think it's just focused on one detour. So I'd say probably no, because it draws the focus away from the New Mexico musical role and its effect on the narrator. No, because it fails to provide specific details about that. No, we don't need the specific details for it to be included. Let's look at the yes, because it makes clear that we're just looking at the reasons. It makes clear that the narrator has plans to travel. We don't know that. We don't know that statement means that she has plans to travel. She just may be thinking, I hear there's another musical in the US somewhere in California. It indicates that the musical role in New Mexico is not unique, eh, but we don't know that. It's still unique, even if it's another one in California. If there are only two in the US, but I mean, how many of us have heard of a musical role? So it's still unique. So it'd be C, right? It takes away the focus from the New Mexico musical role and its effect on the narrator, because that was what the focus was. And 25. This question asks about the essay as a whole. The writer wants to add the following sentence to the essay. It is marvelously quiet. Where they talked about something being marvelously quiet. Point A in paragraph 1. I check my speed. It is marvelously quiet. Carefully, I steer toward the fog line. Here it is, boys. Well, you wouldn't be saying the speed is quiet, so I don't think that's it. Point B in paragraph 2. Then, instead of the jolting warning noise, we hear this distinct strain of the sound, America the Beautiful. It is marvelously quiet. The road is playing a song. No, it can't be quiet in the road playing a song. C in paragraph 3. Whether this strategy works, I don't know. It is marvelously quiet. For me, this brief interlude is a charming curiosity. Now, it's still talking about the music. When B is marvelously quiet. What about D, paragraph 4? After the last one of the notes fades into the darkening sky. So after we hear all the notes, I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. Probably they sleeping. It is marvelously quiet. I stopped worrying about work. So this is when she, yes, is so up until this point in the story, she's got these kids in the back. They playing, they throwing stuff at each other. She gets on this musical roll. It makes sound. It sings a song as she's driving on the bumps, and then that seems to put the kids to sleep. And now it's quiet. And now she feels good. She doesn't have to worry. She gets some calm. All right. Okay, we'll stop right there. I think we're about halfway through because I think it's 50 questions on the English. Yeah. So yeah, we finished 1 through 25 and we'll finish the other half on the next video.